Here we go.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the LFC Daytrippers Transfer Agenda show with your introduction there by Mr. Andy Young. Andy, how are you?
Good, Keith. How are you?
I'm great. All the better for hearing that little spin on the intro music. You know,
he nearly done the countdown theme tune. Did you notice that?
It was building up.
It just gets me in the mood.
Well, that's it, and that's what we want. Everyone in the mood. Let's talk transfers. Grizz Khan, how are you, my man?
I'm fantastic now. I've had my nightly glass of milk.
That's it.
Ready for bed.
Like a good 6-year-old child having his glass of milk, his glass of Bonya before he goes to bed. Gav, how are you?
Hard.
Oh, well, this is it. Gav.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. I'm getting a bit nervous over this transfer window now.
Hold fire, mate.
I am.
Relax.
Grizz's 95% hit rate is in massive doubt now, and witness protection awaits. I'm being honest. So, I'm getting. I've come into the stage now where where you kind of think, oh fuck, who cares what happens? But I do. I care a lot, and I genuinely can't wrap my head around what's going on now. I really can't.
Well, what's changed like overnight? Like, sorry, Keith.
Go ahead, please.
I'm just intrigued with this flip-flop mentality. Like,
well, I wouldn't call it a mentality. I think that's a horrible accusation to throw at me. But do you know what? There's just usually it's kind of, I don't mind if there's complete silence. I don't mind that from the club and everything. I don't mind that. I kind of go, yeah, they're going about their business. But there's too much, like we always talk about transfers and too much, no smoke without fire for player A, B, and C. And that's true most of the time. But I think that there's different things coming out from certain people now, and I kind of that you would trust, and you're kind of going, when you read into them, now you could read into them in a positive way. I'm kind of reading into them now in a bit of a, this doesn't feel right, but I could be completely wrong.
I know what you mean. I just want to, before we carry on, I just want to call out Jax Meyer, who's just insistent that I don't know nothing. Well, yeah, of course I don't, but thanks for tuning in, and smash that like button before we carry on. Carry on. He posted about the same message about 7 dollars.
What response? Oh, Jax wants FSG out, so
is he?
Stay tuned.
If you keep saying it, it'll happen.
Well, that's it. If you say it 3 times in the mirror and turn around, it might work.
And if you're watching Beetlejuice at the same time, it has extra special effects.
That's it. He probably doesn't know what Beetlejuice is. Could be a bit before his time. Lads, it's a classic film. Andy, I'll come to you first. Do you share Gav's nervousness about the way the transfer window was panning out for Liverpool, or is it just a case of relax and hold fire?
Look, obviously we all love new signings, but I'm not getting myself stressed or overly worried about it. I think we've a super team there and a super squad that's only going to improve with the likes of Keita coming into form and Minamino. The areas I'd be most concerned about, just if we did get an injury at the back, we've lost one centre back and we haven't really replaced them. And then the front three have played a huge amount of games. I would like to see back up there. But I'm not as concerned about the midfield as everyone else seems to be. It seems to be like Santiago or it's bust. Liverpool have enough there at the moment to challenge for the league again, or to be favourites for the league again, in my opinion. City haven't addressed their biggest problems, and every other team has an awful lot of catching up to do. So I don't know why we'd be flapping. It'd be quite different if last year we came close again and we haven't improved. You might be thinking that we might slip further. But, I think the league is going to be won with the low 90s this year. And that squad is more than capable. It's more than capable of actually getting more points than we did last year. So we shouldn't be overly worried. But, look, we all love new signings. But, just relax. I think there will be signings. It goes on till October.
Yeah, I'd say so. Grizz, are you just sitting back and just waiting for it all to happen, and you're not flinching? You're holding steadfast in your beliefs that we will improve on this squad?
Keith, we can only go by our past experiences in terms of FSG on the whole. And I don't mean that last summer, because we didn't buy no one last summer. So we can't go by that. But what we can go by is the overall impact, the overall direction these guys have led us in. Now, don't get me wrong. There's no way, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, there's no way we can go into basically, what would it be, a second, third window without addressing the forward issue in terms of how much time, how much games they've played, how much minutes they've had in their legs. We do need to freshen up that area. So in my opinion, before everyone says, of course we need signings. Well, yeah, I'm saying we need signings. It's funny, actually, because at the moment, the trend seems to be, if we don't get Thiago, we're fucked. FSG out. Well, Thiago's the cherry on the icing. Thiago's not what's crucial to what we need. I think Andy alluded to what we really need is a centre-back cover and an attacking player. Now, Thiago's like just a bonus, lovely little present, some may say, from FSG to us, which will happen, but forget that for now. What we do need to address is the defence. And I firmly believe we have 3 weeks or 4 weeks, whatever it is, to address that, and it will be addressed. Now, come the end of the window, and us 4 lads are sitting here, and we haven't addressed any of the issues that we've discussed for weeks on ends, then we will have a different view. Well, I will have a different viewpoint completely. But until then, as Andy says, there's no point shouting, because who's going to listen to your shouts? Just relax, lower your blood pressure, have a glass of milk, and watch the ride.
Yeah, I mean, look, the cherry on the ice, and that must be a Luton thing, is it, Grizz? I haven't heard that one over here.
Shit, is that a new one? Yeah,
it's a new one. But
no, look, we'll always come out with a couple of new ones. Cherry.
I like that. But listen, I do agree. I think Thiago is the signing that everybody wants now. But it was the one that was, it's not the necessity. The need is centre back and the attacking player. Now, I want to touch on. No, we'll come to them. I wanted to just ask Andy. I'll come to you. The recent report that came out from the Swiss Ramble about Liverpool finances. Did you have a look at that? And if you did, what did you make of it?
Yeah, of course I did. I didn't find that new or revealing, and it just puts a little bit of perspective on Liverpool's finances. People assume we're absolutely minted. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of spending has been done on maintaining the current squad. There's a lot of players, big players, that have went on massive contracts, and we've dished out big bonuses because of the success. And that's kind of what happens when you do have success. You end up having to pay out big bonuses. Now, in the years gone past, we let big players go because we couldn't match their wage demands or their ambition. Now, it's a step in the right direction that we're at now to pay players like Van Dijk to keep them on long-term contracts. Salah, Mane, Firmino, whoever, Fabinho. That's what we need to do to maintain, to sustain what we have. The worst thing is losing a big name. If we can keep what we have there, and that's what they're trying to do. I mean, some of the criticism that come from FSG when Sox won their first World Series in 100 years or something is a lot of our big players went soon after because they weren't paying them. Jackson Moore has just been a meanie now in the comments. Look, the Swiss Ramble just puts it. Just read it. If you're not if people are still banging on about loads and loads of money and we just need to buy, read that. Okay, it explains what you need to know. There's not billions of pounds there just to spend. You know what I mean? And they have improved. They've built a training ground, built a stand, and paid out bonuses. But that's an awful lot of money. And I think we're heading in the right direction now with the big Nike deal. It will enable them to spend over the coming 5 years as well. People need to be patient. We hadn't a pot to piss in 10 years ago. And now we are competing in the transfer market. We're not desperate for marquee signings now. We're desperate probably for a little bit of backup. But Klopp does like to keep a nice tight squad. And look, the Swiss Ramble, read it, educate yourself. Don't be just shouting and being meanie on the internet, calling people names on YouTube.
Very true, Andy. Yeah. He sent us tonight. You think we'll? Is there any of that milk left to give him now?
No,
Gav.
I think it's time you went bed. Fuck off.
That could be it. Gav, have you looked into any of this Swiss Ramble stuff? What do you make of what they're saying in that?
I had a quick look over it. Now, listen, the numbers that they put out there are, you could call them a little bit loose because they're using over the last couple of seasons, I think, and they obviously don't have the accounts for this season, so they're using some sort of template. But it's not so much that report that comes out; it's the timing of it. For me, when you look at clubs around the league that are taking out loans against future revenues, which is a standard thing, I believe, but I think they might be taking out a little bit more than they usually did, just to smooth over the whole COVID stuff, and it may bite them down the line. To me, the biggest thing out of it is sustainability. And listen, everyone knows I like FSG for obvious reasons, where we have been, where we are now, and people can go on about how many trophies we have in 10 years. Where we stand now, we stand in an extremely healthy position as a club, both on and off the pitch. Off the pitch is it's astounding, to be honest with you, when you look back 10, 15 years as a club. But it raised some concerns for me, I'm going to be honest, because I spoke a couple of weeks ago on one of our shows about how far FSG can take it, and if you are going by that Swiss Ramble thing, you would say to yourself, they are brilliant at what they do. There's absolutely no doubt about that. A, by making us compete, and B, by bringing the value of the club from whatever you want to give it in 2010 to somewhere north of $2 billion, I think it is at the moment. But you would have to look and say, we don't want to take out loans against the club or against future revenues, because they don't want to have to pay them back and hinder themselves in years to come. But it comes across to me as a little bit of somebody that's trying to keep debt off the balance sheet for a number of reasons. One, if someone's coming in to buy, and the other one is just to make it look more appealing. And I could be completely wrong on that. That's just the gut feeling I got on that report. But it's more the timing of it. People are mentioning there that, Everton have spent 75 million quid on a new midfield and stuff like that. And they absolutely have.
They bloody need it.
Oh, no, they do need it. And that argument is out there.
Top 10.
But that argument, well, I think it'll do better than that, to be honest with you. All joking aside, I think they've made 3 really, really good signings. But, when we look at this, like, people will argue, well, we've a brilliant squad, and we do, and we were so far ahead, and we were. But I always look to. I'm not asking for marquee signings where you're going 50, 60 million 3 times in the summer. No, it's not going to happen, especially with the circumstances that we're in. But I still stand by left back, attacking option, and possibly a midfielder. I stand by that. And centre back is going to have to be an issue now because of what's gone on at centre back. I stand over that. I will wait until the 6th of October until everything is done and the dust settles and you go, yeah. But going on what Klopp likes, and he likes signings in and he likes to bed them in, we're looking at this squad for the next 6-8 weeks possibly before you bed players in. And I include Thiago in that. So for me, with the Swiss Ramble thing, I just thought, I read it, and you can take it, you can read into this whatever way you want, but for me, the timing of it, along with other aspects in the media and reports coming in, have just made me a little bit wary over what this transfer window is going to look like for Liverpool this summer.
Can I just hop in, Gav? That was actually done some time ago. It's just an article is being made about it now. The financial highlights are there every year, and all those figures that are produced are based on fact. The timing might unsettle you, but I mean, they're not making up numbers. It's not a conspiracy. Anybody can look at them graphs or anything that's produced in that report and check it with the financial highlights. And there's a lot of financial speak being spoken in it. Some go on and question it if you want, but it is factual. Like, you know what I
think
mean?
the balance. I think trying to get the balance, Andy, is what's sort of frustrating people. Sort of on both sides. I mean, I agree with you that this report is facts, and I agree with you it's not a conspiracy.
Well, it's not facts.
Because okay.
Well, because are you talking about projections?
Well, it is projections, and they're not using this year's accounts. So they're trying to project what we've earned and what has possibly gone out. So it's actually not facts. To a certain point.
I think Andy was
3/4 of the article is based on the past, Gavin, what's being taken in, and then they obviously have to address what's coming, which is totally up in the air. Like there's big, massive drops in TV revenue coming now, and obviously match day revenue, but you know.
It's a balancing act, isn't it? There's no middle. What seems to be happening at the moment is there's no effing bloody middle ground. It's either sort of extreme people losing their shit over stuff that hasn't happened and are projecting that nothing will happen, imagining nothing will happen, or there's people that are saying, relax, everything's under control, when possibly it doesn't seem to be, with sort of not only this report, but as Gav says, sort of strategic certain LFC journalists retweeting this just to sort of put it out there. I'm sure, is that what you meant, Gav? Like sort of, people putting it out there and the timing of it.
Yeah, I suppose it's like Andy's saying this was done a while ago, now an article's being made of it. Why is an article being made of it now? And people are questioning. Well, people are questioning like, I'm saying timing, and people are saying, well, it's valid now, and well, if it's valid now, it was valid 6 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago.
Well, a lot of people, Gav,
situation is the same.
A lot of people are saying, how come Leeds can spend? They're asking questions like that. How can Everton are spending? But these clubs, you'll find, like, Leeds are seeing a massive boost in their revenue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's half the clubs in the league have taken out loans. You're going to take out loans if you have to bridge a huge gap. Why would you take out a loan now when you've just won the league?
Yeah, I get that, but I suppose what I'm trying to say is, and I'll go back to the thing where I'll wait till the 6th of October. We've seen in the past where, and look, you can go around the issue where, Coutinho paid for this and Coutinho didn't pay for Virgil van Dijk, and he never was going to pay for Virgil van Dijk, because Virgil van Dijk was already in motion before Coutinho ever opened his mouth and wanted to leave Liverpool. That is a fact. That's a fact. So, Liverpool have went big when they needed to sign. They're in a bit of a weird position at the moment where they need depth, and they have players on the fringes that they need to get rid of, and it's normal business sense that you get rid of them. But the timing is the one thing that's in my mind all the time, because you can't go and sign Thiago, but you're going to lose your value on the likes of Grujic or a Shaqiri or whoever else that you feel you want to get rid of. So I suppose it's a game of cat and mouse. Just talking now, Bayern are in talks with Inter over, is it Brozovic, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's probably like, we spoke the other day about a domino effect, one knocks off the other and the merry-go-round starts. But with Liverpool, it would actually be easier to go out and just sign a big player. I think if there was a gaping hole, I think it'd be easier to just go out and go bang, we're throwing that money at it. But they're trying to move different pieces on the chessboard here at the right time. So it's trying to acquire players, and it's trying to get rid of players, and it's trying to line them all up at the exact right time where you get your players in. I don't think 30 million is an issue for Thiago, but I think don't affect 3 or 4 of the transfers by doing this one right now. The kind of and that's just the way I'm thinking at the moment. Like, I was blasé at the start of this window that we'll do a left back, a centre back if need be, a striker or attacker as we call it, and a midfielder will be a bonus. I still think we'll end up along them lines, but I think we're going to have to be very patient, just because the way the market is at the moment. But I am getting a little bit wary. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to tell you lies. Like,
come here, if you want to be critical of FC, we're going to get all the comments now about speaking up for them. If you want to criticize them, which people don't seem to, is how come they haven't got the money? How come all of those profits are being swallowed up in player bonuses? Why didn't they negotiate contracts a little bit differently so they would be left with money to invest in players? Does anyone ask that question?
I mean, maybe their plan was
just
ahead.
assuming- are
They probably
just-
went ahead of plan and didn't expect to win Champions League and didn't expect to win the Premier League. And, you know, that I'm second guessing it here as well. But, you know, they built this model, and the offshoot of that is you reward the players based on the things on the success you have. Now, maybe that's after catching them unaware or on the hop. I don't know, but it's interesting. Like, I don't think I agree that the money I don't think is an issue. I genuinely think it's down to moving bodies out. So I'm going to move off the Swiss Ramble stuff and talk about a couple of transfers, right, lads?
Right.
If you don't mind,
1 minute. It was supposed to be 1 minute. Fuck's sake. Yeah,
well, 21. What's the difference?
We certainly talk about it till you finished your milk.
Yeah, that's it. A couple of links out, right, and the effects that are having. The first one I want to talk, it's the big one. It's Harry Wilson. I was going to say Danny Wilson there. Harry Wilson moving to Aston Villa looked like it could happen, but now it looks like they're 8 million apart in their valuations, which is a bit worrying because I don't know who's up and who's down on the 8 million. I'd love to see what the two sort of valuations are on that one. But Grizz, I'll come to you. Harry Wilson, what do you see happening with him? Do you see him moving? Do you think it's just a case of teams are just, again, trying to play chicken with us to see
Of course they
the
are.
Weebling?
Yeah. Every club's doing what they've got to do in their position, and how we're playing chicken with Bayern in terms of Thiago. You know, people are doing the same with Wilson and us. I mean, Wilson, I think, I don't know if we've discussed it, but there was an article by the other day where it said Liverpool have made their decision. You know, Wilson stays. And there's a bit of a misleading one. Then underneath it said, if he doesn't get sold, like permanently, you know, what they meant was he's definitely not going on loan. And we've made that clear to every club that's inquired and said, look, give us an X amount. The X amount is supposed to be sort of around the 20 million mark. I'm sure we're flexible with that. But at the moment, teams are taking a piss with their offers to us, and we've every right to refuse them. It's frustrating. You know, we want movement out so we can see movement in, or vice versa, either way. And it works both ways. But every club is doing what they've got to do for themselves to get the best deal. And people know, again, what we were discussing off air, what Gav was saying, people will know that Wilson, the reason why we came out with that piece, whoever made, I can't remember who it was one of the big journalists, but the reason why we put that out there is we're very happy to keep him. We're just letting other clubs know, give us a decent valuation and you can have him. But, you know, again, people know that he's not in our squad. He's not in our plans. And so they're trying to take the piss with single figure bids for him. And Harry Wilson's not worth 8-9 million. Harry Wilson is 15 million plus minimum. You know, he's a young, up and coming star, done very well on every loan that he's been to. So we have every right to sort of bide our time, but it's frustrating to the fan base. The fan base is fucking going mental. You know, why it's not happening, but this is why it's not happening. And eventually deals will take place, but it's just who blinks first.
Yeah. Gav, do you think with the Harry Wilson deal that it's basically he's not a priority sale because, well, in my opinion, because I don't think we need money. I don't think that's our issue at all. Like, do you think Liverpool would rather try and move on a Grujic or a Carragher or one of the, even Genie at this stage? I know there's a domino effect people are talking about there where, you know, Inter are waiting to sign Vidal from Barcelona and Inter are selling Brozovic to Bayern Munich, and Bayern Munich are losing Thiago. You know, there's all these moves that are waiting to happen. Is that when it all kicks off? Like the Harry Wilson doesn't count against their non-homegrown quota, so Liverpool aren't in a rush to move him on, or do you see it different?
I think. Well, Shawnee made a great point here a couple of weeks ago where he went, "Listen, lads, if Bournemouth had stayed up, if they would have won one more game in the Premier League, Harry Wilson would be a Bournemouth player." Yeah. 23 million it was done. So that shows Liverpool's intent with regards to Harry Wilson. Now, having said that, there could have been some sort of buyback clause put in there and they went, listen, we're willing to put 10 million on top of that in a year's time or 18 months' time because he just flourishes, and that might have been the plan and the risk to take. But for me, Harry Wilson, 12 million isn't enough, I don't think. I would have thought somebody said there he reckons 15, 16 million. I think that's about right. I think if you look at it, 23 million, you probably take 20% off that. So you're around 18 million, somewhere around there. And if you go with 15 plus 2 or 3 add-ons, I think.
And I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to end up.
Yeah, I think that's probably a deal that happens. The talk is though that Leeds are leading the way. Newcastle, Villa, Bournemouth were actually still looking, but for a massively reduced price. And Harry Wilson doesn't seem. That's the talk is that Harry Wilson doesn't seem mad about going. So Harry Wilson signed a 5-year deal at Liverpool, not long before he went to Bournemouth. You know, so he can sit there and say, "No, I'm not going." So you don't know, but I think Harry Wilson, if all things being equal, if Liverpool got, I think 15 million, as people are saying in the chat. I think that's very fair. I think if Liverpool get 15 million and Harry Wilson feels it's a club like a Villa or a Leeds or whoever that you could go and improve, I think that will happen. But you're right in what you say. Is it a priority? Probably not, because Harry Wilson wouldn't be on the fringes for me as much as Marco Grujic would. Marco Grujic is being loaned out 2 seasons in a row. Now people would say Harry Wilson has, but Harry Wilson I think has shown in the Premier League he has a lot of potential. He has that long-term deal, so we'll have to wait and see. I think Harry Wilson will leave the club. I don't think they get anywhere near the 23 million, but I don't think it'll be as low as 12. But having said that, I don't think he plays a massive part in what we're trying to do with other players, i.e. Thiago or Ismail Sarr or whoever it might. Like, I know I linked to a couple of different players and we get onto them later, but I don't think he plays a massive part. And people will say, oh, well, it's 15 million we're selling to buy. I don't think it's a sell to buy like that. I think it's a sell to buy in a way that it positionally, if you know what I mean, rather than financially. Do you get what I'm trying to say to you?
Yeah.
So, you know, we wouldn't be selling Harry Wilson to bring in Sarr. We might be trying to sell Origi to bring in Sarr. So, I think 15 million I think is very fair on Harry Wilson, and it's just about Harry Wilson picking the right club for him. And if he doesn't feel that right club comes along, he stays where he is, and he's well within his rights to.
Very true, very true. Andy, do you have a take on the Harry Wilson saga, or is it something you're not really interested in?
Yeah, it's hardly a saga. They've had lots of inquiries about him. The usual negotiating. Teams are all going to use the same excuses Liverpool have been using about the unpredictability of COVID. So it's going to be used against us as well. You have to accept that, and they'll just meet halfway. In a similar way, we'll probably end up doing a deal for Thiago halfway. It's just the way it goes.
That's true.
You have to remember, there's no panic in any of this. This window goes on for ages.
Yeah. And I know people don't like to hear that, you know, but it is true. And Carl Gaskin put a comment in there earlier about, you know, we're trying to bring prices down for their targets. We can't moan when other clubs are doing that to us.
Should I tell you what some are missing? The point about sort of why is it going so late and why haven't we done no deals? And often the shouts thrown out, well, we need them to bed in pre-season. Well, there is no fucking pre-season this time around. There isn't, right? It's literally play 2 games and going into the season. So what Klopp and his coaches know is they've got a bloody brilliant team, 14, 15 players that have just smashed 100 points, right? And so they know we're good to go again because of a short turnover. Now, the deficiencies in our squad, to a man, we knew what they were. They were a reserve left-back, a centre-back, and an attacker. Well, we've done the reserve left-back. We haven't done the centre-back, and we haven't done the attacker. Or attacker stroke creativity. Now, you could say Thiago could be the creative player. Let's just say, for argument's sake, right? Some would accept that Thiago, would we all agree Thiago is a creative player? That's why we're bringing him, to add to the creativity. Well, that would mean we're a centre-back away from basically covering up the deficiency that everyone screamed for. So I don't get what the panic is for. It's uncertain times. It's totally different from normal. There is no preseason. There is no bedding time. We know whoever we bring in, Tsimikas, a young centre-back, is for the next phase. It's not for now. We're ready to go now. We have got 14, 15, 16 players that have won us the league at a canter. Sometimes we forget that. So there is no betting in time this season. It's a total different window as opposed to the normal one. So that's why it's going to go deep.
Yeah, that's true. Another interesting one as well, and I think it's it's going to tie in with a lot of the moves and the rumours and stories that are going to revolve around Liverpool this season, is the links to Origi being moved on seem to have dried up, and a lot of the pathways he had out have been blocked now. Andy, have you kept up to breast with a lot of the clubs that were chasing Divock? I mean, we had like Lazio, we had Wolves, we had Villa, we had other clubs there. Who was it, Grizz? Any other teams that were chasing Origi?
Wolves, Palace, Villa.
A lot of them have signed forwards for big money or are linked with closing them out. For example, Wolves smashed their record, bought Fabio Silva for 40 million. Villa are trying to sign Ollie Watkins for 25 from Brentford. Lazio signed a guy Mariki from Fenerbahce. So they're all signing forwards, and Divock is not. All the teams he's linked with are not moving. Do you think this is playing into the reason why Brewster is now being looked to be moved on?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have said Origi's one that Klopp is trying to rush out the door. He's amongst the 4 or 5 players. If they got a decent offer in, he'd be allowed to go. And Klopp would look to get someone a bit more suitable. Like, Divock's been good for us. He scored some big goals, but, 70% of the time he doesn't really suit us when he comes into games. But unless somebody comes in with a big offer, he's going nowhere. And he's going to be decent enough backup. I actually don't see him going, to be honest.
Yeah, it's looking that way now. Grizz, what do you make of the forward movement that we might see out of Liverpool this summer? How do you think it's shaping up?
Movement out? Yeah. It's movement out is so basically we know that Shaq is for sale. It's literally a case of Shaq is one of the reserve forwards that we've got on our books. Again, COVID has caused issues for that deal. Shaq would have easily got us 20, 25 million with our eyes closed. You know what I mean? Now we're struggling to sort of get any bids worth making, getting our attention. With Divock and Brewster, we've discussed it at length, but it's such a difficult one. As Andy says, I can't see us forcefully pushing Divock away. But if we get an offer in the region of 25-30, then there's no doubt in my mind we would sell it. But again, that's not to say sort of it's a sell to buy policy. I mean, people are getting confused with sell to buy as opposed to sort of refurbish the squad, regenerate, that's allowed. Clubs are allowed to do that. I don't know why our fans, like some of the outrage today about a rumor that Brewster might be sold as opposed to just loaned out, was outrageous. It was crazy. People were sort of up in arms about Brewster like he's, the Messi of Liverpool, and he's got, how are we selling Brewster when he's so brilliant? What has he done that's so brilliant? Don't get me wrong. This is coming from someone who said, I personally would keep him in the squad. But the outrage to sort of selling him and then maybe possibly bringing in a Sarr who would be actually playing. Like, Brewster hasn't actually played for us since he's been at our club. I know he's played a few odd cup games here and there, but where's this outrage come from? What makes people think that, it's such a bad move. It's such a hypocritical move from FSG and Klopp to suddenly sell Brewster. Well, look, if you love Klopp like you say you do, why don't you trust his judgments? Why don't you also trust the process to sort of, if he thinks he can get a better play in by selling someone? It was the same. Some of the outrage was worse when you sold Coutinho. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're selling our best ever player. Well, we're not. We're selling a player that had huge potential, still has huge potential, but hasn't really done it for us. So if we were to sort of decide, and it's only a rumor yet, if we were to decide to sort of sell him for 20, 25 million, I would trust Klopp and Edwards to replace him with someone like Ismail Sarr, who I think would be better for the first 11. That's just my opinion.
There's a couple of ways of looking at Brewster. I mean, when the team is struggling a little bit, like say, take United for example, they can bring in Greenwood and give him all the chance he wants, and it doesn't fucking matter really either way. But Liverpool probably can't offer Brewster the games that his ambition matches. So does he accept another loan, or does he want to move himself? I know for sure that Klopp won't let a youngster go if he thinks he has the ability to make it, and he'd be getting minutes and he'd be getting every chance. He'd be saying to Brewster, listen, hang on, kid, we're going to play you. But if that's not the case, Klopp knows. Klopp sees him every day in training. Everything's monitored. His whole loan move would have been monitored. Yes, he scored a few goals in the championship. I'd like to see him get a chance. I like the fella. I think he's got he's got something about him that's a little bit different to what Firmino is and Origi is. I would like to see him stay, but I just don't think he gets the minutes. I think Origi's probably still ahead of him, and then Minamino's probably still ahead of him then to play that central position. I think we just need to be patient about Brewster and trust Klopp. None of us really know exactly what Brewster's about to be seeing him playing some Premier League games. It's a totally different animal.
It's true. Gav, what's your take on the Brewster situation?
Sorry, I'm just reading the comments. People seem to think I'm upset about something. David Lennon's looking for a wave and everything. I don't know how to wave in a northern accent, David. But the Brewster thing, I'm again. Listen, I don't know if there's anything solid about him being sold. I think there was, this has gone from will he get a chance in the squad to he may be loaned out to it may be a permanent deal, and again you can look at this in so many ways. People are saying, "Oh, this is the way we're raising funds by selling him, and we'll put a buyback clause in and stuff." I find it bizarre that listen, I go as far as a loan. Okay, I'm not all right with it, but that stuff happens. But to sell Rhian Brewster, even with a buyback clause, I think is madness. I really, really do. You're sending him out there. You're getting if it's 20 million, okay, you get 20 million, but you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what you're not nurturing him. You're not doing anything, and you could end up wasting a serious talent by cutting them loose. I don't know how. I don't know how reliable these people are when they say that this could happen. I'd be against it. Simply because I think there's players in that squad or on the fringes or who have been out on loan that have done a lot less than Rhian Brewster and have got way more chances than he has. I'd love to see him in the squad for the season. I've always said it. I'd love to see him get chances here and there, and then make a decision on him. I think it's way too early to be making a decision on Rhian Brewster. Even if you are getting 20 million quid, it could cost you 40 to buy him back. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Keith,
it looks very unlikely that he will stay with the squad if this stuff is going around and being thrown around there, and you don't know if the club are putting it out there. But I think the most extreme with Rhian Brewster for me should be a loan.
Yeah, sorry, Grizz, you were going to jump in there.
No, I just wanted to ask Gav. I mean, Gav's given his opinion, and Gav knows I respect his opinion a lot. But I'm about to question it now. But Gav, okay. So for example, look. We're in a situation, and I totally accept and I agree that there are certain players that should be, right, from our fans' point of view, should be sold ahead of Brewster, right? So we're thinking the likes of Shaq, Gruitch, Wilson, Carragher, etc., right? But what I'm suggesting to you, and please don't get angry like the other day. What I'm saying to you is, if we need money now, for example, if we needed money, we don't. But if an offer came for 25 million for Brewster, and as we've discussed, it doesn't seem there will be much game time for Brewster, especially the system that we play, and especially the rise of Minamino that we've seen, and the likes of Jones, and sort of the 4-2-3-1, which gives him less opportunities, right? If a bid came in, and as we know, Klopp blesses every in and out, right? So if with his blessing, he said, look, that's fine, I'm happy to let Brewster go, I don't see why that's an issue, even if a buyback clause is inserted, which doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get him back. It's our option if we in the future, if we decide to think, oh my God, yeah, he's turned into a brilliant player. At the moment, he's brilliant potential. But if it is to be a brilliant player, I don't see the harm in that right now. I don't see, not from you, but general outrage on sort of Twitter today that why are we selling Brewster? Well, if Klopp says 25 million, yeah, and we go and get an Ismail Sarr, just for argument's sake, I'd be very, very happy, and I'd very much trust Klopp and everyone to think, yeah, that's fine. They think that's the move that needs to be made. Why not?
I think, I suppose, like when you look, and you make a fair point, you know, if 20 million quid comes in, my biggest thing is that Rhian Brewster needs direction in his career, and you know, he could go off and be brilliant for somebody for 20 million quid, and we could have a buyback of 30 million, but then who's to say Rhian Brewster comes back? You know, I get the feeling that if Liverpool, if there's any kind of substance to this, if I was Rhian Brewster, I'd be majorly pissed off now at this stage. Majorly pissed off, because Rhian Brewster had a chance to go to Germany. I think it was Mönchengladbach, right?
Yeah.
And he would have got loads of chances. Loads of chances. He could have went, and Liverpool fought tooth and nail to keep them. And, you know, he had a bad injury, and he got back, and he's gone on loan, and he's proven himself. And if Liverpool are going to turn around after all this and go, oh, we've got 20 million, they're just using them, basically. I'd be fuming if I was Rhian Brewster. But
it's a tough life.
Hold on, it's a tough life, I get that. But on the other hand, you know, do you want to nurture this player, or do you want to just throw him out there and go, oh, well, if you're good enough, we might take you back? You know, it doesn't show anything to the player. And look, it's a rough business. It's a cutthroat business. It
is.
But for a player of that age, I'll put it to you then. If somebody comes in with 25 million for Harvey Elliott, are you selling them?
I'm not, but I'm saying if Klopp thinks that's the way forward, look, yeah, no problem. You know, if he sold it, what I meant to say, it comes down to trusting the process and Klopp. We love this manager.
I'm not suggesting. I'm not, and I've seen people suggest that FSG are trying to sell Brewster to just get money in. I don't agree with that. I think Klopp would have the final say if he was to go or not. But,
of course he would.
You can put this to any player. Put this to any player now.
The likes of Elliott, the likes of Jones, the likes of Hoover, the likes of all these guys that have had offers from other clubs, loans, have been dispatched. Brewster never, the offers or the bids don't seem to get dispatched. There's always this uncertainty. Will he go? Will he not go? Where will he go? For example, we all saw the Klopp interview a couple of weeks back where he said, Brewster played very well, but we will discuss what is best. Brilliant accent, right? But we will discuss his Australia. But we will have discussions with him.
I thought he was Indian.
Me, I am. Fuck's sake. That shows to me there's still uncertainty. And so it's not just a sudden decision out of the blue to sell him. It's obviously been discussed. And, you know, both coach and him would have had words and said, look, you're not going to get much chance here again. I'm sorry. It's either loan or do you just want to go? Maybe. And maybe Brewster said, look, I'm happy to go now. I've had enough. You're right. Why
is people being so defensive about him? I mean,
this is my point.
We haven't seen him playing in the league, and I mean, if things
this is behind the scenes,
if it's what's happening behind the scenes is he's just not doing it.
There was rumours, wasn't there rumours when he went on loan that there was a bit of a fallout with Klopp, and maybe he's getting sacked. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Look, there was one stage. You know, he was talking Brewster up a couple of seasons ago, going into the season, and then he was sent out on loan. He had his arm around Jordan Ibe like he was going to be one of his, you know, his next project. And then before you know, he sold. Look, when players aren't good enough to play for a top team like Liverpool, just won the league, they're going to be moved on. Why are people being sensible? I'd love to see. Look, I believed that Brewster was going to be one of the next big things. But you look at players like Curtis Jones, he's got his chances, and you just know there's something about this fella. I just don't see it.
Look, in sort of, and me and you will remember sort of being the elder statesman. We'll remember Fergie, right, making some tough calls, right? And Fergie let go of some stunning talent, which was supposed to be brilliant in his time. But, you know, it was always proved to be right. Like I think Klopp deserves the right to be able to turn over his squad, even if it means making some tough calls on the likes of Brewster or Origi. You know, sentiment goes out the window. We're operating at a level where we can't be worried about how the player feels. Is it a good look? Bollocks to all that. You know, how many hard decisions have managers made in the past, sort of, you know, over some young talent? And if Klopp feels that, Yeah, I agree. We stopped him from going to Mönchengladbach. That was about, how long ago was that, Keith? 2-3 years ago? I think it was
2 years ago, yeah.
But it was before his injury, right?
No, he was it.
Then
no.
Then he got that injury.
That was when he signed the contract. They got him to sign the contract on the basis that he'd be pushed in and stopped him going to Mönchengladbach 2 summers ago.
And maybe that injury was more devastating than we think or we know. And it's affected him sort of, in the progress that he was supposed to have made. I mean, I just don't get the outrage, among social media today about, how dare we sell Brewster? Well, how dare you tell Klopp?
But I think the argument here is that, don't get me wrong. I think Curtis Jones has come on fantastically. I can remember watching him probably 2 years ago in pre-season going, I don't think he make it. I think he's too lightweight. I think he plays the game for himself a bit much. But when you look at him now, it's the complete opposite. He's bulked up. He's tactically aware. He's a really good team player. And, things can change dramatically in a year or two for players, especially at that age. But my argument is, listen, he might go on loan. He might get sold. He might stay with the squad. All I'm saying is he is probably the attacking player of all these players that we discussed that are talents that has proven himself the most.
I agree.
And that's where I have a bit of an issue with it. And me and Andy had this discussion going back a couple of weeks ago. And all I'm saying is, I would genuinely, I think Rhian Brewster would get a pain in his bollocks now and just say, listen, I've had enough. I'm out of here because I'm doing my best. I've done everything I've asked to do. I've been made promises, like you mentioned with the contract 2 years ago, right? That haven't been fulfilled, even though he's done everything that's been asked of him. And he's watching players that aren't as good as him and haven't proven as much. And they're being kept around this squad week after week after week. And he's being asked to, jump how high sort of thing. And I get the feeling that if this goes on and does materialise into anything that we're discussing now, Rhian Brewster will probably say, fuck yes, I'm out of here.
Look, Gav, very, very few players have left the Klopp team and gave out about him. If Brewster goes, fans are going to have to make peace of it. The players are going to have to make peace with it. It can be a cruel game at times. So I don't think he's going to be sold. I think the Twitter outrage is based on a few rumours. I think realistically he probably gets another loan. And look, if he does stay and he gets his chances, great. Everyone will be happy. Everyone will be happy to see him get his chances. A lot of comments saying it's not fair. Curtis has had chances. That's the point. Brewster hasn't had his. But Curtis Jones has earned his too. And he's lit the place up when he's played.
Yeah, very true. Right, before we move on, we'll move off Brewster. Gav, I want to come to you very quickly. Is there any updates on our Predictor race or any of the Instagram stuff we're going to be doing in the start of the new season?
So, Predictor race, that closes at midnight on Thursday. So, basically, you go onto our YouTube channel, go to the Predictor race video. In the description there, you'll see the 50 questions. Type out your 50 questions and send it to the email address that's also in the description. 50 questions, one winner. There's no runners up. There's no nearly men. It's 50 questions and one winner. We're going to start collating them tonight, actually. So get on that before midnight on Thursday. We have got we have prizes coming in. A few have come in. A few have been promised to us from the likes of Tree Retro, Love Follow Conquer have told us they'll sort us out with a prize at the end of the season. They're hard to get now because obviously people are different sizes in jerseys and stuff like that. But we have a couple of prizes in already, and we'll gather them as the season goes on, and the one winner gets the whole lot. We'll outline it a lot more on Friday show, because Friday show is when we'll update every week on this competition. With regards to Instagram, go and follow us on Instagram. Very simple. Before every game and after every game, we're going to be doing 10 to 15 minutes. It'll be it could be me, it could be Keith, it could be Grizz if we ever dare to try set them up on Instagram. It could be Shawnee. And basically, it's your opportunity to come on and talk. So you go and watch us live on Instagram. You request to come onto the show. We hit the OK button. You come on and give your thoughts on lineups or whatever, or reaction to the game. So go and follow us on Instagram for that as well. And I think that's about it.
Yeah, good stuff. A nice little break from the heat that was going on there.
That was good chat.
Oh yeah, well, I thought it was, but More to come. I'm going to move through a couple of other little things that have come up before we talk about players that have been linked into Liverpool. One of the things that's arisen over the last few days has been the talk of Fabinho moving to the fourth choice centre back. Andy, have you heard much about this? And do you like the idea of Fabinho being used in that role?
No, I don't like the idea of Fabinho being used that role at all. I think it goes against all of his qualities. He's so good high up the pitch. He breaks up the play high up the pitch. He presses for a defensive midfielder. I've never seen a player press like him. He's kind of reinvented that role himself, and he's perfect for our midfield. So putting him centre back is just something to give people a belief in the idea that Thiago comes in and plays the screening role, and then we still have a place for Fabinho on the team. I'd hate to see him being our fourth choice. Look, I don't know. I want us to sign a centre back, and I'm starting to wonder, will we at all? Because Lovren was nearly gone late in the window last year to Roma without a replacement being brought in. So maybe Klopp has Fabinho earmarked to play, as a fourth choice centre back. But I don't like the idea of it all. Even though Henderson can play the six quite well, did it between December and February last year. We conceded about 3 goals. He does the job very well. But look, for me, Fabinho is just too good in the midfield. He's too enjoyable to watch. He can win the ball up high and then flick a ball across over the top or play diagonals and get players in. So no thanks for me.
Not for you, Grizz. What do you think of the Fabinho to centre-back rumours?
I'm torn. I really am. As a fourth choice, you have to ask yourself, if we don't sign a centre-back, then it means they had this in their sort of plans, as opposed to it's just an emergency move and look, we're panicking, we're not buying the centre-back. Yeah. The fact that Andy does remind me that Lovren was nearly sold near the end of the window and we still didn't sign a centre-back. And now added to the fact that, I say fact, well, it is near enough fact, that Thiago is coming in to already congested midfield. And the formation change that we discussed the other day where it seems... Obviously, we don't know, but it may become a 4-2-3-1 situation. And we've got sort of the likes of Hendo, who's tremendous at number 6 in our title-winning season for a lot of the time. Fabinho would be ideally a mainstay in the midfield, but if you was to ask me right now, going into this season and saying, look, if it meant Thiago coming in, if it meant relying on sort of Fabinho to play, and fingers crossed, touch wood and all that kind of stuff, hopefully not too many games at centre back. The chances of sort of 2 or 3 of our centre backs being cropped for a while is mad high. And if it meant getting another attacker in, I think it's just me. It's just me. I know loads will argue, but I'm happy with going with Fabinho as our fourth choice if it meant getting an extra attacker, if that was the permutation.
Gav, what do you make of the Fabinho to centre-back, and would you sacrifice buying a centre-back if it meant we could get a Thiago and an attacker over the line? Do you think it's a viable option?
It's a viable option, but I don't think it's the right one. I'm being honest with you. I'm not a fan. Listen, if Fabinho has to go in there because all our centre halves or 3 of our 4 centre halves are suspended or injured, you go okay, but I don't want to see him in there on a long term basis. He wasn't signed to be a centre half of Liverpool. He was signed to be a centre midfielder for Liverpool, and that's where he should play. Now, listen, people will say to you, well, people are versatile and look at Milner and stuff like that. That's fine, but he's a really, really important part of what we do in midfield. Again, the argument will be, well, if we sign Thiago, he could be there. Yeah, he could, but at the end of the day, you're still going to end up with a central midfielder playing at centre half. If it happens once or twice, yeah, there's no issue. But I think over a longer period of time, I think it could be a worry. I don't see why we need to use Fabinho as a fourth choice centre back to allow us to sign a forward and a midfielder. I really don't. I don't think it should be beyond Liverpool to sign a centre back that they feel could be, I don't know, fourth choice, third choice, pushing for Joe Gomez a spot. I don't know what way they want to look at it. An attacker, which we're crying out for. Let's be honest about it. You know, we can say we've a brilliant squad, and we can say we're brilliant and we've the best front three in the world, and they're probably all true facts. But the drop off is too much. It's too much, and we will struggle if we lose Mane or Salah or Firmino for a period of time, and that mightn't happen, but it might. So for me, I don't think there's any reason why Liverpool can't do a forward, can't do a centre back, and can't do Thiago and alleviate that problem with Fabinho. Having said that, if they do them three and something happens all the centre halves, Fabinho goes in there, fine, but you don't want it for a long period of time. That's just my opinion.
We've got to remember Fabinho. I know a lot of shock horror in the comments as well, and a lot of people saying Fabinho at centre back. Well, you've got to remember a lot of his career he's played as a defender.
He plays right back for Brazil.
Yeah, but he's played right back, not centre back. So it's such a difference,
but
you know.
He's played there for Monaco as well, centre back, and look the kind of centre back Degsy was, right? Bless his cotton socks, and he's gone on to score goals like Bergkamp tonight and whatnot. Bless him. But look, if we done a Twitter poll now and said Fabinho at centre back or Degsy at centre back, I think probably Fabinho would be, you know, nip and tuck. I don't think there'd be much in it. So from that viewpoint, we're replacing a fourth choice Degsy with a fourth choice Fabinho. I'm not saying he'd be our regular centre back. Of course, I'm not. I'm trying to sort of bring some rationale behind it, my thinking, and I'm saying, look, if there was an emergency and he played there for say 7 to 8 games, I don't think you got to remember we played Bayern Munich with Fabinho at centre back and kept a clean sheet very easily. He's played there a few times for us and hasn't looked out of place. In an emergency or as a cover, I don't see it being too much of a problem because of the strength we've got in central midfield. That's my pro. My against it would be the crisps that are Matip. If Matip was more durable, then I wouldn't have a problem with it.
It's one that I think depends on, you know, you're looking at the worst case scenario. You lose a centre back to injury. Yeah. We have two that are quite can miss games in Matip and in Gomez. But I think Fabinho as a centre back playing in our system, if it was beside Van Dijk, which we haven't seen, he's played there beside Matip, wasn't it, against Bayern Munich? Was it Matip and Fabinho played centre back in that one? And he played there against Wolves when whoever made his debut.
Yeah, it was Matip and Fabinho against Bayern.
Yeah, so if it was a thing that he was playing alongside Van Dijk, I mean, anyone could play there, and it might suit, you know, teams aren't going to be bombarding us. It might be, you know, play the ball out, move in, and it could work theoretically. And it's something Gav said, I don't think we would maybe have to not sign a centre back to buy the forward player. I think they might just be looking, and again, we're just guessing because we're just basing it on rumours and on stuff that we're reading as well. But I just think they might fancy a centre-back next season. Now, we spoke about Ben White before. Maybe they're going to look, instead of bringing in, we've said maybe a defender in the 10 to 15 million mark centre-back, they might be saying, well, look, if we can do Fabinho there for a year, we may be able to do something next season when it's more of a priority. I don't know. I think it's interesting. We'll move off Fabinho, and another one I wanted to talk about was Newcastle are doing a bit of business there as well. They've signed Callum Wilson and they signed Ryan Fraser, and they also signed Jamal Lewis, 13.5 million. Andy, I'll come to you on this one. What did you make of Jamal Lewis going to Newcastle for 13 million?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, that was the sort of figure he was being linked with us for, wasn't it? Yeah. And they were demanding 20 million, and now he's gone to Newcastle. He must be raging himself, the player. I'm sure he would have preferred the move to Liverpool. Probably gets to come in at Newcastle and play every game. So it's one of those, isn't it? That might be a big move ahead for him depending how he gets on at Newcastle. But yeah, I'd say every penny of that 30 million is going to be spent on Skips being sent to Anfield to piss us off.
Yeah, very much, very much. Gav, have you followed the Lewis move to Newcastle with any interest whatsoever?
Yeah, a little bit. I have to be honest, I think they've made some good signings as well. Ryan Fraser's a good signing for them. He's probably one of Bournemouth's better players. Few fitness issues, I think, but really good player when he gets going. They've signed the striker, Callum Wilson, which is a really good signing.
Yeah.
A really good signing for Newcastle because he's mobile, he's direct, he's strong, he's an eye for goal. Joe Linton was 40 million quid, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And it just hasn't happened for him. But you never know if they were brave enough to go with the physicality of Joe Linton and the sort of attributes that Callum Wilson have, that they're onto a winner. Jamal Lewis is just a mad one, and people were saying Liverpool were skint and Liverpool were cheap and stuff like that. Liverpool seeing the value in Callum or in Jamal Lewis at around 10, 12 million quid, and Norwich decided it was like a champions tax. We want 20, and I'm sure Jamal Lewis thought, isn't it great that Norwich value me so much at 20 million and then sell him to Newcastle for 13? He's gone there. I'd say he just wants to get away from Norwich after all that, but he has to be fucking fuming. He's going to a team there that, historically in the Premier League over the last couple of seasons hover between probably 12th and 17th, and he could have been playing for Liverpool, but that's the way it goes. He's a good signing for Newcastle. I think any signings are good for Newcastle. I think they're a bit stale, but I think they've done good business. But you have to wait and see. It's a lot of change at Newcastle, and it's a lot of bedding in. They're not the signings they were expecting, because of course 6-8 weeks ago they were expecting to be the richest club in the world, and they're not. But no, decent stuff in Newcastle. Decent stuff from a couple, and I include Everton in that as well.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of people are talking about, the fact it was 13 million for Lewis and add-ons thrown in. But Kieran Thorne does point out that some of them add-ons are about winning cups and Champions League qualification. So, it's probably 13 million. You know what I mean? But the thing, Grizz, that I find about it, a lot of people said, no, Jamal Lewis definitely was the first thing. Liverpool rushed out and just went and got Tsimikas then. Makes me think that maybe Tsimikas, it wasn't as clear cut that Lewis was the first choice, because Tsimikas takes up maybe Lewis does as well. Does he a non-homegrown? Yeah, he would actually. So maybe it's not all that different. But the fact that he walked away so quickly from Lewis makes me think they didn't really even end that much negotiations with Norwich. What do you think of that?
It's an example of how people that jump on this bandwagon of we're cheap and we're skin and we're tight asses, sometimes later on it transpires totally different. The story transpires, and it transpires now that they were trying to fleece us for 20 million when the actual value that they had in their head was what we went for in the end. To me it shows how good we are at sort of forecasting and predicting what other clubs are going to say and do with us, and how we have the power to walk away. They really didn't think that sort of we'll abandon it and sort of have someone else lined up, and they took us for fools. And lo and behold, I truly think we've got the better deal anyway. I rate Tsimikas more than Jamal Lewis, but the most sorry I feel for is Jamal Lewis. 1 second he's playing in front of the Kop for under Jurgen Klopp, and next minute he's playing for Steve Bruce.
Down the Gallowgate, yeah, it's true. It's a big drop, all right. But look, he could do well there. He's a decent enough player. I want to move on, lads, before we finish up and talk about some of the players that are being linked with Liverpool in the attacking sense. And we know Ismaila Sarr is linked. We know Patson Daka is being linked as well. And Dominic Szoboszlai as well is a name that's being linked. Gav, what do you make of these links? Do you think there's anything in them? Or do any of them excite you or interest you in the attacking sense?
Sarr does, but the worry for me is the African nations, and I still don't know when the African nations is happening. It's being moved to somebody told me it's being moved to January because the climate is too severe in the summer and stuff like that. But if the African nations was in the summer, you just go, yeah, Sarr, it does excite me. Really impressed me at Anfield when we played them, and of course at Vicarage Road, he was man of the match as well. The Daka stuff, he looked good. He looks good. I like him. I've seen people say, would we bring him in now? Would we do a kind of Keita deal? I think one of our followers on Twitter was suggesting that earlier, and I think we all kind of agreed that sounded like a decent sort of idea. Szoboszlai, don't know too much about him, gonna be honest about it. He's banging in free kicks, though. I've seen that on Twitter, but it's becoming a curious situation as to what you do up front, because if you're keeping Origi and you can't get rid of Shaqiri and you want to get rid of Brewster, you're starting to wonder what sort of player you're looking for. You know, that kind of way, because they're three totally different players, and when you're home in, I think it might just come down to raw pace that we look for, and that's why Sarr has been out there front and centre. But that's 40 million quid, you know. But then again, you never know. You never know with Liverpool, because genuinely, I don't know what way Liverpool are looking at this now. I don't know whether they're just biding their time. I do believe they're waiting in the midfield section for things to move at certain times and stuff like that, and I've said that earlier. But attacking wise, I don't know what sort of player they're looking for, Keith. I really don't. Sarr excites me. Daka excites me. Szoboszlai, I'm not going to pretend I'm any sort of expert on him, but it'll be interesting to see if they do go, and I hope they do go for an attacking player, what sort of player they get. Not just the name, but what sort of player profile they have and the attributes they have to complement what we have already.
Very good point. Andy, do you know much about these three players linked? Because as Gav touched on there, they're all very different players. We've got Sarr as a winger. Daka can play across the front, but is mainly a centre forward. And Szoboszlai is more of a number 10 who can play wide.
No, I mean...
I'm so happy you helped him out there. I'm so happy you helped him out there, Keith. Tell me this was horrible. Go on.
Yeah, I know you stay up all night watching all sorts of Live for leagues like the other fella Grizz. But no, we're not going to pretend. I'm familiar with Sarr. I'm a huge fan of Sarr. I'd love to see him come into Liverpool. I think he's exactly what this team is and needs. But then the other two names, like it's going to be different names next week. That's the way it's been. You know, linked with a player for a week. Next week you're hearing different names. We've been doing the show for 6 weeks, I suppose, and you're rattling off names. Sarr for me, I'd love it. I'd love it to happen. I'd probably love it to happen more than I would Thiago, to be honest.
Oh,
yeah. Good, nice.
Yeah, but that's because the whole Thiago thing seems to be based around Wijnaldum leaving, and I see in the comments Klopp was meant to be having conversations with Wijnaldum this week.
Yeah,
I was so disappointed to see him move. So much of what Fabinho's able to do in our team when he does go pressing up high, Wijnaldum can slot in behind him, and Henderson does that job as well. It's what makes that midfield so good. How much they complement each other. Wijnaldum be a huge loss. Look, I wish him best of luck if that's what he wants to move on. He wants to go on to Barca and fulfill that ambition. Fair play to him, but be a massive loss. And if Thiago is based on Wijnaldum leaving, I'm very much torn. But Sarr coming in would excite me more than anything, really.
Yeah. What about you, Grizz? How do you say?
Yeah, well, I think we might as well end on the news that I said we're going to have some good news on Tuesdays. And everyone was going mad, like, are we signing anyone? No one. Well, we are signing people, but the good news was that, you know, a couple of things. As we said every week, you know, you're going to get tentative links to Thiago, you know, and, you know, they're going to be sort of brushed away within days. Well, the latest link was back to Barca. Again, that's been brushed away. So now we've had PSG, we've had Chelsea, we've had Bayern, we've had, who else have we had? United, all linked with Thiago. The same thing's been told to all of them. Forget about it. He's going to Liverpool. And secondly, Andy wants to see Ismail Assar more than anyone else. Well, we have started talks with Watford. So keep an eye on that one. We have started talks this week with Watford over Ismail Assar. And that's what I wanted to share with the viewers and listeners this Tuesday evening.
Well done, Grizz. Well done. We left them hanging, but we got
well
there
delivered.
In the end.
No
That's
problem.
it. The mailman does it again. So look, we will probably leave it there, lads. I'd say an hour and 10. The chat was lively to say the least tonight. But look, we take everyone's opinions on board, and we've no problem with any of that. If anyone last chance is to be smashing that like button, walk away, won't cost you anything. We appreciate it, and we'll tie it up there. So Andy, thanks very much for joining us tonight.
Yeah, nice and pleasure. It was interesting.
Read my notes next time.
It was what?
Read my notes next time.
Oh well, come here. It was interesting to see the term top red being used in the comments. It's the first time outside Twitter I've seen that term used, so it's spreading
in the lexicon now, isn't it?
It's yeah.
Oh, it's good to see. It's good to see as a top red. You must be delighted.
Look, you know what? I want to see one of these guys who calls other fans top reds come onto the show. Any of them are welcome. I'd love to come on. I just want to see what they look like in real life, and if they actually exist.
Well, we have offered people with alternative views. Anybody who actually believes FSG are top reds, more than welcome to come on our show.
Yeah.
We're not like that.
Why not?
Absolutely open.
Why not? It'd be a pleasure. It'd be a pleasure to have someone on and just to hear them put a bit of perspective on their opinions. Like it's all in the good barking on in the comments with nothing to back it up. You know, just put it. You know, send us a tweet. We'll have you on any night.
There you go. And Grizz, my man, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
No problem, mate. Absolute pleasure as always.
Good stuff, Gav. Thank you.
No problem.
Gav's fifth in the bed.
He looks it.
I'm grand. I've been up since about 4:30 this morning. But I'm grand. Back on Thursday with another Transfer Agenda show. Our season launches on Friday night with our new show, The Friday Forecast. And before and after the game on Saturday on Instagram, and back with the Fatback 4 on Sunday. So that's the schedule for the rest of the week.
Excellent stuff. So we'll leave it there. I've been your host, Keith Plunkett. We've been the LFC Daytrippers. This has been the Transfer Agenda show. Good night.
Good show, top reds.